Part 3. The moment Wang Yi broke through, he felt a mysterious pulling force that wanted to draw him into the Phala space. However, this time, it was not like before. When he broke through to the peak of Rank 9, it was mandatory to enter the Phala space. The Phala space would not care about the consequences and would simply draw him in. However, this time, it became dependent on the will of the martial art. The moment Wang Yi refused to enter, the will of the unseen world directly withdrew the guiding force. After calming down, Wang Yi was a little excited. He did not expect his breakthrough to be so smooth. Who would have thought that the level 10 of the Dragon Elephant Wisdom technique would be so perverse? The current him could probably suppress the previous him who had not broken through with one hand or even kill him. His physical strength had increased by at least a few times. As he looked at the silver-winged cloud leopard still in the air, a sinister smile flashed across Wang Yi's face. A long whistle cut through the air. Then, Wang Yi bent his legs slightly and exerted strength, shooting towards the figure in the air like an arrow released from a bow. The silver-winged cloud leopard's pupils suddenly shrunk. It guiltily looked at its own position and discovered that there was no change. However, it still felt a little scared and somewhat unconfident. He shouldn't be able to reach me, right? In that instant, Wang Yi's figure had already crossed half the distance between them, but the mental impact did not decrease at all. The silver-winged cloud leopard's mouth was wide open in shock, and only a single thought remained. Oh no! As expected, Wang Yi's silhouette penetrated through the layers of clouds, instantly appearing above the silver-winged cloud leopard. After which, he descended rapidly. His tiny body was akin to a divine mountain, directly suppressing the silver-winged cloud leopard's gigantic figure to the ground. It was not until its body was suppressed that the silver-winged cloud leopard finally reacted. Just as it was about to smash into the peak, it only had time to scream. Jinlin Guoshi, you've gone too far. Boom! The entire peak shook as if an earthquake had occurred. Another giant crater hundreds of meters in diameter appeared beside the crater created by Wang Yi. You bastard, I caught you this time, didn't I? Do you dare to show me your arrogance again? Wang Yi's complacent voice resounded from the crater. It was filled with joy. Right, at this moment, Wang Yi was in an extremely good mood. Not only had he broken through, but the most important thing was that he also finally caught this bastard. His fists were like a torrential rain that continuously smashed onto the silver-winged cloud leopard's body. Wang Yi did not use his full strength as he was afraid that he would accidentally kill it. He had not even shouted 100 times into its ears yet. This is from the SoundStories Audiobook YouTube channel. Woo, 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 ellipsis. Even though he didn't use all of its strength, he was still powerful enough to make the silver-winged cloud leopard suffer greatly. It was in so much pain that its entire body was trembling, and it could only emit whimpering sounds in response to the protest of its pain receptors. The silver-winged cloud leopard felt like it was about to explode. It didn't expect that not only did those little black beads fail to kill this great vicious human being, but it even helped him make a breakthrough. If it really responded, it would suffer a double loss. If it had known that this would happen, it would have just run away. In that case, the great vicious human being wouldn't be able to use this chance to make a breakthrough. Meanwhile, it wouldn't have become a prisoner, with its life in the hands of others. There were all kinds of things that could be sold in this world, but there was no medicine for regret. No matter how much it regretted its decision, it was useless. Wang Yi played for a while before he got tired of it. He stopped what he was doing and went to the ear of the silver-winged cloud leopard. He had not forgotten how he wanted to shout in its ear 100 times. With the silver-winged cloud leopard's size, its ears weren't actually that big. In fact, it could even be said to be a bit small. When Wang Yi reached its ears, he felt that he was almost reaching a window. Then, he shouted excitedly, "Ah, ah!" Ellipsis. The sound echoed non-stop. As a result, the entire crater shook, and stone fragments continuously fell. Wang Yi was satisfied. Meanwhile, the silver-winged cloud leopard couldn't take it anymore. Every time Wang Yi cried out, it felt as if its head had been dealt a heavy blow. It took the silver-winged cloud leopard a long time to recover. Its ears were ringing, its body was weak, and its eyes were burning with rage. It was a rank 9 beast king after all. It was in existence at the top of the food chain. Thus, it had never suffered such humiliation. Moreover, the silver-winged cloud leopard had already thought things through. Since it had fallen into the hands of this vicious human being, there was a high chance that its ending would be miserable. At this moment, a sense of pride arose in its heart. It no longer had any thoughts of compromising. Of course, its attitude wasn't good either. It raised its head as high as it could and scolded Wang Yi with a look of disdain. Bastard, what can you do even if you catch me? Why are you so weak? Are you scratching an itch for me? Holy shit, Wang Yi was also angered to the point of laughter. He never expected that this dog would still dare to be so arrogant even when death was at hand, and to think that it still had such a despicable mouth. Following this, Wang Yi no longer held back and waved his fists once more. It was clear that he had become much faster than before. As the attacks continued, he mumbled, "Who are you calling a bastard? You're tickling me." Louder. "Shut up. I'll make it hurt." Ellipsis. Almost every word was accompanied by a rain of heavy punches. Everyone had a limit to how much pain they could endure. It was just that their bodies and wills were different, so the upper limit was different. Obviously, the silver-winged cloud leopard seemed to have overestimated its own endurance. Its unyielding attitude didn't last long before it stopped itself from howling. Then, it couldn't help but lower its voice. This is from the SoundStories Audiobook YouTube channel. Ouch, stop hitting me, I was wrong, alright. Are you still hitting me? Don't hit my face. I give in, I give in. I'm the bastard, I'm the bastard. Can you stop hitting me now? As it begged for mercy, its massive body began to shrink. Wang Yi nearly could not hold it in anymore and burst out laughing. He did not expect this fellow to be so unreasonable and not be afraid of being beaten up. However, it had only been a short while and he still wasn't satisfied yet, but this fellow had already admitted defeat. The most unexpected thing was that the silver-winged cloud leopard could actually control the size of its body, just like the demons in the legends of his previous life. As its body swayed, it slowly became smaller. 15 meters, 10 meters, 5 meters. Ellipsis. It only stopped when its body shrunk to about 2 meters. Wang Yi put his hands behind his back. Then, he raised his head slightly and looked at the silver-winged cloud leopard that was still taller than him. He was still somewhat dissatisfied as he waved his fist again. Become smaller. Become smaller. Ellipsis. Only when the other party had shrunk to the size of a normal domestic cat did Wang Yi stop what he was doing. Then, he rubbed his hands in satisfaction. After that, he directly pinched the fur on the other party's neck and casually lifted it up to meet his gaze. He stretched out a finger and casually fiddled with the small pair of silver wings. Then, he tapped its head again before he smiled and said, "Have you given up?" The silver-winged cloud leopard frantically nodded its head, acting like a spoiled child at home. It hurriedly said in a fawning manner, "I give up, my lord, I give up." At the same time, the system notification sounded again. Ding. Conditions fulfilled. Subsidiary function activated. Beep. Subsidiary function activating. Ding. Subsidiary function activated successfully. Ding. New function added battle pet contract. Ding. Peak rank 9 beast, the silver-winged cloud leopard, has submitted itself to you. Do you want to make a contract and take it in as a battle pet? Wang Yi was dumbfounded. He felt that the way that the system functioned was a little wrong. The situation had changed too quickly. At first, it felt like the system was making him the strongest human being in martial arts. Later, the system changed his profession to a spirit chef. Now, he had a new profession as a summoner. This system was way too improper. However, Wang Yi did not think about it for too long. There was no need to. After all, he had always been on the passive receiving end. Since he couldn't resist the system, he might as well enjoy it silently. "I will sign a contract," Wang Yi said without hesitation. As he finished speaking, a mysterious array pattern that was made up of white light appeared in the middle of him and the beast. It was similar to a hexagonal array with countless ancient characters engraved on it. The moment the formation pattern appeared, it split into two separate arrays, one big and one small. The small array appeared on the silver-winged cloud leopard's forehead, while the large one appeared on Wang Yi's forehead. In an instant, a brilliant light shone. At the same time, as the white light invaded the silver-winged cloud leopard's mind, a huge figure sitting cross-legged in the sky suddenly opened its eyes. In the blink of an eye, the white light transformed into a heavenly saber and slashed down before the figure could react. Bang! The figure was sliced into pieces and disappeared. Meanwhile, the heavenly saber emitted a white light once again. Finally, in the spiritual space, a new array pattern was condensed and it was branded with dazzling brilliance. Meanwhile, the moment the figure was shattered. In the depths of the endless wilderness, there was a massive ancient palace at the peak of a divine mountain. Human figures were shuttling back and forth, while vicious beasts were everywhere. On the central throne, a terrifying figure sat cross-legged. The aura around him was faintly discernible, and no one dared to face his might. All of a sudden, the figure's face paled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, an endless might rose from his body, causing the air to creak from the pressure. Regardless of whether it was humans or beasts in the palace, they were all silent like cicadas in the winter. They did not dare to make a single sound for fear of angering this person. Who exactly is it? How dare you shatter my divine sense? Ignorant child, how dare you bully me like this? If I catch you, even if I ground your bones to dust, it will still be difficult to eliminate your sins. His furious voice resounded throughout the entire palace. The coldness within made people feel as if they were frozen to the bone under the scorching summer sun. The blood in their bodies even seemed to have slowed down. In fact, it was no wonder he was so furious. In the entire Langya region, he, the demon venerable Tiandu, was the absolute overlord. Apart from the Conate realm expert in Langya County City, no one dared to compete with him. However, he did not expect that someone would dare to destroy his divine sense right under his nose. Among the beast races, the law of the jungle was the most important. That wisp of divine sense was not very powerful, but it was used to control the great beast kings under his command. It was also used to prevent his subordinates from betraying him. At the crucial moment, it would explode and destroy the spiritual sea of his subordinates. Who would have thought that his divine sense would be destroyed today? How could he not be angry? The demon venerable Tiandu calmed down after venting his anger on the huge throne. The palace fell into silence once again. However, it was exceptionally stifling, as if a storm was brewing. Golden Edge King, Wind-Chasing King, come and see me. As the grand voice sounded, exclamation mark. Two figures appeared in the main hall as if they had teleported. Their auras were deep and profound. Then, the two figures lowered their heads and said respectfully, "We are here. Silver Wing has betrayed the heavenly capital territory. The two of you quickly go there. Capture him and his accomplices and bring them back to meet me. There must be no mistake." As soon as the demon venerable Tiandu finished speaking, the two great beast kings below responded in unison. Then, their figures disappeared from the main hall just as suddenly as they had appeared. At the top of the heaven-breaking peak, Wang Yi had no idea what was happening millions of kilometers away. As the light faded, the mechanical system notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully establishing a contract and obtaining a peak rank 9 battle pet, the silver-winged cloud leopard. At the same time, Wang Yi suddenly felt that he seemed to have formed some sort of miraculous connection with the silver-winged cloud leopard before him. He seemed to be able to decide the life and death of the other party with a single thought. He could also sense the other party's emotions. For example, there was shock, grievance, anger, and other emotions. This time, Wang Yi was not happy. He was considered a top presence among other rank 9 martial artists. If he was willing, it would not be difficult for him to enter the Conate realm. It would not be too much even if he was regarded as a Conate realm expert. What grievances did this dog have from following him? What was there to be upset about? As for its anger, Wang Yi was the furious one. He simply hit its little head hard before throwing the silver-winged cloud leopard aside. He kept cursing in a low voice, "Bastard! If anything happens to the medicinal liquid from this flower, I'll directly stew you and turn you into soup." The silver-winged cloud leopard couldn't help but shiver, subconsciously shrinking its neck. Its small head was still dizzy and it was unable to react. Who am I? Where am I? Who exactly was this great vicious human being? Less than a day ago, it was still a free and unfettered great beast king. It had a bright future ahead of it, but in the blink of an eye, it had become someone else's prisoner. Wang Yi leapt up from the hole and instantly appeared beside the 7-colored heaven ascension stage. Then, he was stunned by the scene before him. The spiritual spring in the pool had all but evaporated by the terrifying lightning. The rest of the area was charred black, like ruins after a disaster. Only the two flowers floating on the surface of the ground weren't affected at all. The 7-colored glow grew even brighter. In this environment, the flowers appeared even more beautiful and bewitching. Yes, there were 2 flowers. Wang Yi initially thought that he was seeing things. However, to his surprise, not only did the lightning not destroy the flower, another flower actually appeared from the original flower. What was even more unbelievable was that Wang Yi could feel the terrifying energy contained within them. The 2 flowers had actually matured and there were no differences between the two. Did the lightning accelerate the maturation of the flower? And how did another flower appear? Although he did not understand the logic behind it, he did not care. Anyway, it was better to have more of such things. No one would complain about having more, right? While Wang Yi was still in a daze, the silver-winged cloud leopard also staggered forward. Then, it was stunned by the scene before it. After that, its heart was drowned by endless regret. If it had known that those small black beads had such an effect, it would have been great if it had used them earlier. Then, it wouldn't have had to guard this place for so many years in vain. In the end, this bastard even took advantage of it. Wang Yi glanced at the silver-winged cloud leopard beside him and grabbed its neck again. Then, he lifted it up and threw it down. You dog, don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. If you dare to scold me in your heart again, believe it or not, I'll turn you into soup. Holy fuck, how did he know what I was thinking? The silver-winged cloud leopard had an expression of disbelief. Was this for real? Was he really that amazing? Bang! Wang Yi slapped the silver-winged cloud leopard's head again with an evil smile on his face. How dare it scold him? This time, the silver-winged cloud leopard completely became obedient. Even if it didn't believe it, it had no choice. If it didn't believe it, then it would be beaten up. Who could endure this? Seeing that the other party had really become obedient, Wang Yi prepared to pluck the seven-colored heaven ascension stage. However, treasures had their own consciousness and were able to sense danger. How could they be easily obtained by others? Just as his hand was about to touch the seven-colored heaven ascension stage, a seven-colored pillar of light shot into the sky, followed by a circular ring of light. Wang Yi could feel an immense force from the halo stopping him from taking another step forward. After sensing it carefully, he could not help but click his tongue in wonder. The defensive power of that halo was not weak. It was at least at the peak of rank 9. Even if he wasn't around, the silver-winged cloud leopard might not necessarily be able to obtain it. Ignoring the fact that it was unable to break through the defensive barrier, merely the seven-colored pillar of light was enough to cause it trouble. One had to know that this pillar of light was a sign that a treasure was about to be born. It could be seen clearly from thousands of miles away. However, in this endless wilderness, the silver-winged cloud leopard's strength was just average. Even though it could become a great beast king under the Conate realm demon venerable, this did not mean that it was very powerful. It was just that too many powerful existences were unwilling to be restrained, so they lived a nomadic life, away from organizations who could restrain them. There were plenty of creatures stronger than it. If it was discovered by other powerful beings before it broke through the protective light ring, that would truly be troublesome. However, this matter was much easier to resolve for Wang Yi. He exerted some force with his fingers. Crack! With a crisp sound, the halo instantly shattered and two seven-colored flowers appeared in front of him. Wang Yi waved his hand and the two seven-colored heaven ascension stage flowers disappeared in the blink of an eye. The silver-winged cloud leopard watched with envy, but there was nothing it could do. It could only sigh. Wang Yi had hunted quite a number of beasts and even picked two fully matured seven-colored heaven ascension stage flowers. Thus, it could be said that he had exceeded his quota. Wang Yi was also preparing to return to the city. After all, he had wasted too much time in the wilderness. He kicked the silver-winged cloud leopard that was still in a daze and said, "Let's go." Then, he felt a weight on his shoulders. The silver-winged cloud leopard jumped onto his shoulder. Wang Yi was speechless. This guy's character had changed so quickly. It had adapted to its new identity at such a fast pace. However, he looked at how the silver-winged cloud leopard was standing upright on its rear legs, while one of its front legs was drooping and the other was missing. It was really pitiful. Nothing much happened on the way back. Other than some beasts who did not know about the world and successfully turned themselves into a part of Wang Yi's spiritual food stash, the journey back was considered relatively quiet. When they returned to Kang City, the sky had already darkened once again. Wang Yi was silent. This trip to the wilderness felt like a lifetime ago. Compared to the deathly silence, desolation, danger, and lifelessness in the wilderness, the peace, quiet, and safety of the giant city were worlds apart, forming a strong contrast. He had already missed his appointment with Fang Ming's. In addition, he hadn't brought his phone with him when he left the city, so he didn't mind wasting more time. Wang Yi followed the address in his memory and walked towards the Su family villa. At this moment, he had already broken through to rank 10 and his spiritual power was unprecedentedly strong. He could definitely support the Su family. He would be able to leave a mark on Su Xia and her parents. Furthermore, he was strong enough to withstand the spiritual power of a level 7 Grandmaster without being affected that much. With Wang Yi's speed, he arrived at the Su family villa in the blink of an eye. When he arrived at the Su family villa, he was a little disappointed. The entire luxurious villa was pitch black without a single person inside. However, this did not have much of an impact on him. In the first place, Wang Yi had come here just in case anything bad had happened while he was gone. There was a very high probability that there would be news from the Guardian's residence as soon as Zhao Tianlin entered Kang City. To the Guardian's residence, which had occupied Kang City for more than 10 years and had always been the center of power, their intelligence systems were the very foundation of their power. Kang City would probably receive the news as soon as Zhao Tianlin left Langya County City. Meanwhile, in order to befriend and rope in a newly advanced Grandmaster like him, the Guardian's residence would probably make things convenient for him. Furthermore, an expert with worries was easier to control than an expert without worries. They could also feel more at ease after interacting with each other. Since there was no one in the Su family villa, Wang Yi did not intend to stay any longer. He turned around and left. Although it was already dark and a long time had already passed since his appointment with Fang Ming's, Wang Yi still decided to make a trip to the Tuling dojo. Firstly, he wanted to see the attitude of the Guardian's residence. Secondly, he wanted to see if Fang Ming's was lucky enough to be there when he arrived. Most importantly, it would not take too long. He reached Suite 6 on the 3rd floor of the Tuling dojo. Wang Yi pushed open the door to the private suite and found that it was brightly lit. Fang Ming's was sitting cross-legged on the sofa with his eyes closed. As the door opened, Fang Ming's instantly opened his eyes. He looked at Wang Yi, who had pushed the door open, and immediately stood up to welcome him. He said with a smile, "Grandmaster Wang, you're here." Wang Yi nodded his head and couldn't help but sigh. This fellow was sensible enough and was truly lucky enough. Wang Yi did not come at the agreed time, but he was qualified to do so. Meanwhile, whether Fang Ming's was waiting here would depend on his own good fortune. If Wang Yi came here today and there was no one present, even though he would still give Fang Ming's the things he previously wanted to give, that would be all. However, if Fang Ming's was waiting here after Wang Yi opened the door, then things would be different. Opportunities belong to everyone, and it all depended on whether or not one could grasp them. Obviously, Fang Ming's belonged to those who grasped opportunities. Wang Yi was in a good mood, and his evaluation of Fang Ming's had increased. Initially, he had thought that he could just casually make a few dishes out of rank 2 or rank 3 beasts. Now, he did not want to deal with them anymore. Wang Yi's spiritual power swept past Fang Ming's. Then, he realized that Fang Ming's was in the middle of rank 3 and was still a very long way from reaching the peak of rank 3. After pondering for a moment, Wang Yi had a plan in mind and smiled. Whether or not this lucky fellow would be able to advance to the battle warrior rank would depend on his own luck. Then, he smiled and said, "Sorry for the delay. Sorry for making you wait." Fang Ming's hurriedly waved his hand and said respectfully, "Grandmaster Wang is too polite. I didn't wait for long." Wang Yi was speechless and didn't dwell on this topic for too long. Instead, he looked at the kitchenware that Fang Ming's had prepared and said with a smile, "You haven't eaten yet, right? I'll make a few dishes later and you can try them too." Fang Ming's face was filled with eagerness as he said, "I am so fortunate to be able to taste Grandmaster Wang's cooking today." It didn't matter if the dishes were good or bad. For ordinary people, it was a great honor for a Grandmaster to personally cook for them. Wang Yi was selecting spiritual food in the system space. Given Fang Ming's situation, it would not be easy for him to reach the peak of rank 3 with just one meal. He could not use spiritual food with spirit chi that was too strong and violent. After all, with Fang Ming's physique and strength, he would not be able to withstand it at all. Spiritual food with ordinary and mild spirit chi wouldn't do either. Although it could help him raise his strength, the effects wouldn't be that good either. He definitely wouldn't reach the peak of rank 3. However, it was fortunate that Wang Yi had managed to hunt quite a number of beasts this time. Otherwise, he would have really lost face today. As Wang Yi continued to pick his ingredients, corpses of ferocious beasts appeared out of thin air in the room. After being sliced, they disappeared one by one. More and more spiritual food also appeared on the chopping board. Soon, the chopping board was filled to the brim with all sorts of colorful lights. Meanwhile, Fang Ming's was completely stunned by Wang Yi's methods. How did 5-meter-tall beasts suddenly appear and disappear? Also, was that python-shaped beast covered in a scarlet-red color, a rank 6 red-striped python. In this short period of time, Wang Yi had taken out more than 10 types of beasts, 3 of which were at rank 6. Bang! As Wang Yi waved his hand again, the entire room seemed to tremble. Then, a 10-meter-tall beast corpse appeared out of thin air with a dull thud. There was also a faint pressure exuding from its body. Fang Ming's had yet to recover from his shock and was once again stunned. What did he see? He saw a scarlet blood tyrant lion. It was a rank 7 beastmaster. Even if he was mistaken, the pressure exuded by a beast's corpse would never lie. Such pressure could only be felt from beasts that had reached rank 7. Looking at the complete appearance of the beast's corpse, it was actually killed in one strike. Moreover, with this degree of freshness, it was definitely killed not long ago. Most likely, even his father, a rank 7 Grandmaster who was the guardian of Kang City, would only have a 50-50 chance against this scarlet blood tyrant lion. Even if he could win, it would be a miserable victory, let alone killing it in one strike. One had to be at least a rank 9 Grandmaster to be able to kill it in one hit, right? A rank 8 Grandmaster could kill a scarlet blood tyrant lion, but the kill would definitely not be that clean. How did this person do it? Did he kill it himself? Or did he have a rank 9 expert backing him? If this person had a rank 9 Great Grandmaster backing him, then his disdain towards Zhao Tianlin was understandable. It was also natural that he was able to advance and become a Grandmaster at such a young age. If this person was the one who killed the scarlet blood tyrant lion, it would be terrifying. He would have to reevaluate the strength of Grandmaster Wang. Regardless of which reason it was, this person was really not simple. Zhao Tianlin was probably going to be in trouble. Fang Ming's had too many questions and doubts. It didn't matter how the corpses of ferocious beasts disappeared and reappeared out of thin air. What mattered the most was the unfathomable strength and background of this person. Fang Ming's had many doubts on his mind. At this moment, Wang Yi seemed to be shrouded in a layer of fog, making it harder for others to see him clearly. Of course, this was all done on purpose by Wang Yi. Otherwise, to raise Fang Ming's to the peak of rank 3, would he really have to use a rank 7 beastmaster? Even a rank 6 spiritual food would probably be too much. The most important thing was still to show off his skills. After all, after settling the trouble of Zhao Tianlin, the Su family still had to develop on their own. Meanwhile, as a native family of Kang City, it would definitely be beneficial for the Guardian's family to have the resources to guard the prefecture. With Wang Yi around, it would be easy for the Su family to surpass the Guardian's family in a short period of time. However, the Su family's foundation was not enough to support such a huge leap. Actually, there were many ways to show off his skills, but what Wang Yi was doing now was the most troublesome method and had the worst effect. The simplest solution was for Wang Yi to go to the Guardian's residence and show off his Supreme Grandmaster aura. There was no need to elaborate on what would happen next. Fang Yuan would simply know what to do. All in all, it was Fang Ming's who had left a good impression on Wang Yi. That was why Wang Yi was willing to go through so much trouble. Even so, Fang Ming's eyes shone with a different light, and his attitude became more cautious. While Wang Yi was packing the spiritual food, his mouth was not idle. He asked casually, "Did your father teach you your cultivation technique?" Although Wang Yi spoke casually, Fang Ming's did not dare to speak casually to Wang Yi. He kept thinking deeply to see if Wang Yi had any hidden intentions. For example, right now, Fang Ming's was confused as to what this person meant. Was Wang Yi coveting his cultivation technique? That shouldn't be the case. After all, Wang Yi knew his limits. The cultivation methods of his family were definitely top quality in the battle soldier rank. The speed at which he absorbed spiritual energy far surpassed those at the same level, allowing him to quickly advance. However, it was only the battle soldier rank. Since the cultivation method had no follow-up methods, after breaking through to the battle warrior rank, one had to change their cultivation method. Thus, it wasn't as precious as one would think. Meanwhile, one could imagine how precious Wang Yi's cultivation technique was, for him to be able to achieve the Grandmaster realm at such a young age. Thus, Fang Ming's cultivation technique was really not worthy of his attention. What did this Grandmaster Wang mean? It was hard to say. Fang Ming's could only answer honestly, "Grandmaster Wang, you are right. This, dragon subduing pillar, cultivation technique was indeed passed down by my father to me. It is a technique that my father cultivated when he was young. Wang Yi nodded and did not express his opinion. It was as he had guessed. Even a grandmaster's cultivation technique was only this efficient when he was young. It seemed that the martial arts in this world were not as strong as he had imagined. Of course, it was also possible that the circle he had come into contact with was simply too small. Once he left Kang City and went to the Langya region, he might encounter a completely different scenery. Perhaps the dojos there would be even more prosperous. Experts would be as common as clouds, and there would be as many top-notch experts as dogs. Conate realm cultivators would probably be everywhere as well. However, it was also possible that the martial arts level of the entire world was about the same as Kang City. But of course, Wang Yi truly had no idea. Who could say for sure? Actually, for Wang Yi, it would be best if he could just stay in Kang City forever and not attract any attention. He could quietly sign in until he fully developed and became invincible. Only then would he come out and introduce himself to the world. At that time, no matter what kind of demons or monsters he encountered, and no matter who was the strongest in the martial path, he would be able to deal with them with a single slap. It would not be like that time in Langya County City, where he could only run away helplessly after sensing the aura of a Conate realm expert. Although it was just on the way and he didn't take it to heart at that time, he still felt somewhat stifled. As the true chi in Wang Yi's hands surged, the countless pieces of spiritual meat shrank and the spirit chi emitted from them grew denser. Wang Yi only stopped when all the spiritual meat became the size of a thumb. Then, he pointed his finger like a sword. A strand of sharp true chi seeped out from his fingertip like a sharp carving knife. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. With a flick of his finger, countless pieces of spiritual meat transformed into miniature ferocious beasts. They were extremely lifelike, and each piece of spiritual meat transformed into the corresponding appearance of the creature when it was still alive. Wang Yi couldn't help but laugh. This dish I made is called the Beast Court. Fang Mings was dazzled by what he saw and didn't know what to say for some time. Meanwhile, Wang Yi did not care about the other party's reaction. As soon as he finished speaking, he casually waved his hand and a pot appeared in his hand. Once again, he gestured in the air. Then, a spiritual spring appeared from the void and filled the pot. Without using the stove that Fang Mings had prepared, Wang Yi immediately drove his true chi into the pot and ignited it. As the spiritual spring started to steam, Wang Yi first placed the mini scarlet blood tyrant lion into the pot. Spirit chi instantly surged. After a long while, it finally calmed down. At this moment, the spiritual spring was steaming with a special fragrance that was very tempting. When the spirit chi within the spiritual meat of the scarlet blood tyrant lion was almost fully emitted, Wang Yi placed some rank 6 spiritual meat into the pot. As the spiritual spring churned, the spiritual meat that had just entered the pot released a large amount of spirit chi. Then, the meat absorbed a portion of the spirit chi contained in the spirit spring. After the spirit chi in the pot stabilized, he placed some rank 5 spiritual meat into the pot. He repeated the process until all the spiritual meat was in the pot. At this moment, the pot looked extremely beautiful. The soup that was formed from the spiritual spring was surrounded by a thick spiritual mist. Many beasts that were rising and falling occasionally peeked out from the spiritual mist. Only the mini scarlet blood tyrant lion in the middle of the pot did not move at all. It was like the only overlord in the pot. As Wang Yi continued to infuse his true chi into the pot, the spirit chi in the pot became thicker and thicker. Meanwhile, the fragrance of the dish filled the entire room. Fang Mings felt like his saliva was about to drip. He subconsciously wiped it and smiled awkwardly. However, Wang Yi did not care. When he felt that the spirit chi in the pot had almost fused with the spiritual food, he stopped the influx of his true chi. Then, he used his spiritual energy to scan the surroundings. One by one, many beasts flew into the air and landed on the plate. The scarlet blood tyrant lion was placed in the middle. Meanwhile, the rest of the animals were arranged from the inside to the outside in the same order as before. After all the meat was placed, the spiritual spring that had turned into thick soup was also poured into the plate. After covering the dish with another plate, Wang Yi walked over with a smile. Seeing Fang Mings lose his composure, Wang Yi said with a smile, "Today, I want to thank you for your hospitality. I've been very happy these past few days, and I also want to thank the Guardian for taking care of the Su family. Today, I'll give you an opportunity. I wanted to make a few more dishes, but I don't think you'll be in the mood to eat anything else after eating this, so I won't waste my effort. There's a particular rule when it comes to eating my dish. You have to eat from the outside to the inside. If you can finish it all, there will be opportunities waiting for you. If you can't, don't force yourself. After saying that, Wang Yi opened the lid of the dish. In an instant, it was as if a golden bolt of lightning flashed across the room, lighting up the entire room. Wang Yi could not help but squint his eyes. This shining food seemed to be different after coming to this martial world. Not only was there a flash of spirit qi in the golden light, but he also found it somewhat painful to look at with his eyes, even with his strength. Meanwhile, Fang Ming's was in an even worse state. His eyes were tightly shut, and tears were flowing down from the corners of his eyes. His nose twitched non-stop. After the golden light dissipated, Fang Ming slowly opened his eyes. Ah! The moment he opened his eyes, he could not help but let out a cry of surprise. The spirit qi within the plate was so dense that it was almost impossible for it to dissipate. All of the mini beasts seemed to have come alive as well. The body of the scarlet blood tyrant lion in the center even emitted a faint sense of pressure. It was like a proud beast king sitting there, waiting for the ferocious beasts to come and pay their respects. Meanwhile, the surrounding beasts all had different expressions on their faces. The only similarity was that their eyes were all focused at the center as if they were fighting to be the first to meet the king. How was this a dish? If it didn't appear on the plate, it would have been a scene of a grand occasion where the beasts met with the beast king. Fang Ming's couldn't help but exclaim. How could this be considered cooking? It was clearly a work of art. Wang Yi had the power to turn something rotten into something magical. Wang Yi reached out his hand and chuckled. Try it. How's the beast court that I made? Then, he was a little worried and warned Fang Ming's again, if you can't take it, don't try to be brave. There are other opportunities waiting for you. Fang Ming's also had a serious look on his face. After all, he had seen the ingredients inside with his own eyes and knew how terrifying they were. There was even the meat of a rank 7 beastmaster inside this dish. Thus, no matter how careful he was, it would not be excessive. The value of this plate was so precious that it was far from what a mere rank 3 martial artist like him could enjoy, even if he was the young master of the Guardian's family. Even his father, a Grand Master realm expert, might not be qualified to eat this. Even if he had enjoyed it before, it could only be at the banquet organized by Langya County City's Guardian. Fang Ming's was also extremely excited. He hadn't expected to receive such treatment and opportunity today. Of course, he still had some self-awareness. He wasn't narcissistic enough to think that the other party would use such treatment just to return the favor he had received. Fang Ming's cupped his fists and bowed deeply. Then, he said gratefully, "Thank you for your kindness, Grand Master Wang. I also proclaim that from now on, the Su family's matters will be the responsibility of the Guardian's residents." Wang Yi could not help but nod his head. He had overestimated the other party. Not bad, he was smart. Then, he smiled and said, "Eat. But eat only what you can. In that case, I won't hold back." With that, Fang Ming's picked up his chopsticks, picked up a piece from the outermost layer of the dish, and placed it in his mouth. Oh, his eyes instantly lit up. When the meat entered his mouth, he first felt that it was tender and full of spiritual juice. Furthermore, there was a lingering fragrance in his mouth as the fresh and delicious feeling filled his taste buds. Fang Ming's could swear that he had never eaten such delicious food in his life. Compared to the dishes made by his own chefs, the difference was like heaven and earth. If his chefs were to serve any dishes now, he would probably think that he was chewing wax if ate their dishes. His own chefs and Wang Yi were simply worlds apart. After savoring the delicious taste, he instantly felt that his meridians were filled with endless spirit qi. The amount of spirit qi in this piece of meat was probably comparable to the amount of spirit qi he had absorbed from cultivating the dragon subduing pillared technique over the past few days. The most inconceivable thing was that this enormous amount of spirit qi was actually incomparably gentle. In the blink of an eye, he had absorbed more than half of it, and there was practically no pressure on his body. This was only the lowest ranked spiritual ingredient, yet it already had such an effect. How could it not be shocking? Wang Yi's spiritual power constantly scanned Fang Ming's as he observed his physical condition. If Fang Ming's body couldn't take it anymore, he could stop him in time. Even though he didn't think that Fang Ming's would be so stupid as to not know when to advance or retreat, it was still better to be safe than sorry. If he stuffed someone to death the first time he cooked for them, he would lose a lot of face. As the number of beasts on the plate decreased, Fang Ming's aura continued to grow stronger. In almost an instant, he broke through to the upper levels of rank 3 and continued to rush towards the peak. Wang Yi nodded slightly and was satisfied with his work. The effects were not bad. Meanwhile, Fang Ming's was dumbfounded. This overturned his understanding of martial arts. Could he really improve his skills in martial arts like this? Shouldn't he be cultivating diligently every day and slowly improving his skills? Why was this dish worth several months of hard work? Fang Ming's could sense that this sort of improvement was not forced. If it was forced, although it would seem like he was much stronger, the improvement was actually very superficial. Instead, as his strength continued to increase, his foundation also became more and more compact and solid. The hidden injuries that had remained in his body when he cultivated in the past were also healed one by one. Fang Ming's narrowed his eyes with a look of enjoyment. He enjoyed the stimulation brought by his taste buds and the pleasure of his strength constantly increasing. For a moment, he felt lost. Wang Yi looked at how Fang Ming's was enjoying himself and scanned him with his spiritual power. After evaluating the situation, he heaved a sigh of relief. There should be no problem. With Fang Ming's foundation and physique, his body would definitely be able to endure the impact of eating the entire dish. Actually, it was Wang Yi who was too careful. He had put a lot of effort into the beast court, after all. In order to allow Fang Ming's to smoothly absorb the spirit qi contained within the dish, he extracted the spirit qi from the high-ranked spiritual food one by one and fused it into the spiritual spring. Then, the spirit qi would be absorbed by the lower-ranked spiritual food. Thus, the spiritual qi would be neutralized, allowing the amount of spiritual qi to be balanced throughout the dish. The spirit qi would then form a gradient from the outside to the inside, and the amount of spirit qi would gradually increase as Fang Ming's progressed closer to the center of the dish. Then, using his powerful true qi as flame, he refined the violent energy contained within the spirit qi, leaving behind only the mildest and easiest spirit qi for Fang Ming's to absorb. Wang Yi had put a lot of effort into this. Actually, he had already deduced a plan many times in his mind. With his vision as a top-notch martial grandmaster, he felt that there was no problem with it. It was just that this was his first time being a senior expert. Thus, he was a little excited and worried about giving others opportunities. He could not allow too many accidents to happen. Boom! When Fang Ming's ate the spiritual meat carved from the scarlet blood tyrant lion, his body shook and a terrifying aura rose. His blood flow accelerated, and rolling thunder rumbled. His blood essence produced the sound of thunder. At this moment, Fang Ming's cultivation level instantly advanced to the peak of rank 3, but his aura fluctuated slightly. He couldn't care less about being impolite. He immediately sat down cross-legged and stabilized his mind. He focused on consolidating his newly advanced realm and familiarizing himself with the explosive power. After a long time, Fang Ming's opened his eyes, and a bright light flashed across them. Then, he stood up and bowed respectfully once again. With a serious and formal expression, he said to Wang Yi, "Thank you, Grandmaster Wang, for granting me such a great opportunity. I cannot thank you enough. Grandmaster, I will definitely not forget your great kindness." Fang Ming's had never imagined that he would be so lucky today to have such an opportunity. His cultivation level directly broke through to the peak of rank 3. The road of a martial artist was like sailing against the current and racing against time. The stronger one was, the more solid one's foundation would be, and the higher one's realm would be. However, more importantly, his foundation had been tamped down to become incomparably solid, and the hidden injuries he had sustained from cultivating in the past had also been healed. It could be said that the current Fang Ming's had a bright future ahead of him. Before becoming a grandmaster, there were no bottlenecks to speak of. Given enough time, he could completely grow into a peak ranked 6 expert. Compared to this, breaking through to the next cultivation level was not as important. This, alone, was a great opportunity. Even though he had the bloodline of a grandmaster and was naturally gifted, he was still under immense pressure. If his strength was too low and his advancement was too slow, he might lose the face of the Guardian's residence. However, how could it be so easy to break through to the next realm? One had to have sufficient luck and resources. Furthermore, the path ahead was unknown. This was great. With one step, his world had changed. It was still hard to say if he would reach the Grandmaster realm in the future, but there was hope for him. This is from the SoundStories Audiobook YouTube channel. Meanwhile, Wang Yi did not care much about it. He waved his hand and said, "You're welcome. I've already said it. This is to thank you for your hospitality." Then, his face turned serious. Looking at Fang Ming's, who was standing with his hands by his side, he spoke solemnly. What I'm about to give you might be a great lucky chance for you. It might allow you to reach the heavens in a single step. It might also be a fatal poison that will consign you to eternal damnation. I'm not completely confident either. You have to consider and weigh the benefits and risks yourself. This concerns your life, after all. I can give you some time to consider, but it's best not to take too long. Just give me a reply after you've thought it through. Fang Mings was also shocked by Wang Yi's words. He had never seen Grandmaster Wang so serious before. However, opportunities were hard to come by. If one wanted to obtain an opportunity to ascend to the heavens, it was normal to face a fatal threat. How could there be so many good things that could be reaped without sowing? After all, he was born in an environment like the Guardian's residence. If he wanted opportunities but did not want to give up anything, he would have been eaten up long ago. Thus, Fang Mingzi's will and scheming heart were considered top-notch among his peers. He knew how to make choices and was very direct. He also knew that risks and opportunities coexisted. Thus, he said without hesitation, "There's no need to think about it. I have already thought it through. Life and death are up to fate, wealth and honor are up to the heavens, and the road of martial arts is fraught with dangers. If one doesn't have the courage to fight to the death, then how can one talk about the peak of martial arts? Grandmaster Wang, I beseech you to bestow upon me a life and death opportunity." Wang Yi clapped his hands and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Good, good, you have guts. I didn't misjudge you. He was naturally very happy in his heart. If Fang Mings showed any signs of hesitation or retreat today, this opportunity would no longer be his. Wang Yi's original plan was to impart a portion of the Dragon Elephant Wisdom technique to Fang Mings. The cultivation technique he cultivated and the martial arts of this world were two different systems. He was able to cultivate because of the modification by the system. Wang Yi's original intention was to test if someone born and raised in this world could cultivate as well. All these were uncertain. However, Wang Yi was not a rash person who would experiment blindly. He was not that cold-blooded to treat human lives like grass. Regardless of success or failure, Wang Yi was confident that he could protect Fang Mingzi's life. This was his absolute confidence as a top-notch master. If he could succeed, it would be a great opportunity for Fang Mings. If not, he could think of other ways to compensate him. Furthermore, he had clearly explained the pros and cons of the matter to Fang Mings beforehand. He did not force Fang Mings to accept the offer. Seeing that Fang Mings agreed readily, Wang Yi did not delay and pointed at his forehead as he spoke at the same time. This is the cultivation technique I'm practicing. It's very different from the cultivation technique you're cultivating. However, the absorption of spirit chi using this technique far exceeds that of the cultivation technique you're cultivating. However, I'm not sure if you can cultivate it as well. If you can't, it's very likely that the spirit chi will become chaotic and your body will explode. This is also the danger and the uncontrollable part of this technique. However, if you succeed, your future will be limitless. There will be no bottlenecks before you reach the Conate realm. Today, I will teach you 3 levels of the technique. I hope you succeed. Fang Mingzi's emotions were instantly thrown into disarray, and his heart felt like it was about to flip over a monstrous wave. What did he hear? The Conate realm. He did not mention becoming a Grandmaster or a Great Grandmaster, but the Conate realm. If it wasn't for the fact that he was born in the Guardian's residence and had a father who was a rank 7 Grandmaster, perhaps he would never know that there was another realm in this world called the Conate realm. It was exactly because he knew about the Conate realm that he understood the horror behind Wang Yi's words, as well as the significance of it. He would not face any bottlenecks before the Conate realm. If he had not heard him wrongly, then Grandmaster Wang was not making fun of him. He was probably not just lucky today. Instead, he was extremely lucky. Fang Mings clearly remembered that his father had once mentioned the Conate realm during a conversation with him. Usually, his father never concealed his desire to advance to rank -8. He did not hide his ambition to become a rank 9 Great Grandmaster either. His desire to pursue martial arts had not weakened at all. However, when his father had mentioned the Conate realm, his helplessness and loneliness had been impossible to conceal. He only said faintly, "Conate realm beings are already immortals, far from what mortals like us can see." While Fang Mings was still letting his imagination run wild, Wang Yi's cold voice suddenly sounded. "Do you still dare to be distracted at a time like this? Do you not want your life anymore? Calm your mind, focus on one thing, and empty your mind." Only then did Fang Mings snap out of his daze. He was also shocked and quickly dispelled the messy thoughts in his mind. No matter what kind of opportunity it was, one had to be alive to enjoy it. Seeing that Fang Mingzi's state of mind had calmed down once more, Wang Yi's finger also landed on Fang Mingzi's forehead. Surging spiritual force passed through his fingertips and directly entered Fang Mingzi's spiritual sea, imprinting the first 3 levels of the Dragon Elephant Wisdom technique into his mind. Wang Yi's current method was similar to the feeling of enlightening described in legends. However, it did not directly increase Fang Mingzi's strength. Instead, he had imparted all his cultivation techniques to Fang Ming's. Unfamiliar memories entered his mind in an instant. The impact made Fang Ming's unable to bear it for a moment, and he could not help but let out a painful growl. Then, the room fell into silence for a very long time again. Even though the 3 levels of the cultivation technique did not take up much memory space, when Wang Yi added some of his cultivation insights, Fang Ming's had to take some time to absorb everything. Fang Ming sat cross-legged on the ground with his eyes tightly shut. His brows were occasionally furrowed and occasionally relaxed. Could he improve his skills in martial arts like this? He didn't need to use high-intensity training to keep his body in an active state before using cultivation techniques to absorb spirit qi. Instead, he used the so-called acupoints in his meridians to forcefully absorb spirit qi by circulating it throughout his body. It was too unbelievable. Today was destined to be the day that his understanding of martial arts would be destroyed. What Wang Yi had imparted to him was vastly different from what he had learned over the past decade. It could even be said that they were completely different. Fang Ming seemed to have turned into a sponge, greedily absorbing everything in his mind. Buzz. In the next moment, he seemed to have sensed something and began to circulate the first level of the cultivation technique. Boom! A powerful vortex of spirit qi appeared around Fang Ming's. It absorbed and squeezed the surrounding spirit qi, like a giant beast that could swallow the heavens. The spirit qi of the entire Tuling dojo was stirred by this vortex. On the 3rd floor of the dojo, the martial artists at the battle soldier rank didn't feel anything, but on the 4th floor, Zhang Tuling and a few instructors at the battle warrior rank were instantly roused from their cultivation. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. What a powerful vortex of spirit qi. It has probably reached the strength of a martial artist at the battle warrior rank, right? The center of the vortex is on the 3rd floor. Could it be that the Tuling dojo has a student who has broken through to the battle warrior rank? Haha, good news, good news. Our ranking in the Martial Arts Alliance of the 13 Southwest cities will probably advance by a few places. Ellipsis. In the room, the clamor of discussion continued. Zhang Tuling, who was sitting at the side of the table, looked around. He waved his hand and the room fell silent. Then, he asked a question: who is the student who is breaking through to the battle warrior rank on the 3rd floor? At this point, a slightly overweight battle warrior rank instructor began typing rapidly on the computer in front of him. Then, he rose and spoke respectfully to Zhang Tuling. Owner, there's only one student cultivating on the 3rd floor. It's Fang Ming's in Suite 6, the young master of the Guardian's family. Zhang Tuling nodded slightly but did not say anything. But he felt that something was wrong. He had some understanding of students with such backgrounds. The young master of the Guardian's family should be in the middle of Rank 3. At most, he would be at the upper levels of Rank 3. He was still quite a distance away from the peak of Rank 3. If he wanted to step into the battle warrior rank, he would need at least a year or 2 of bitter cultivation. How did he make a breakthrough today? Following this, he frowned slightly. Could it be that the Guardian had obtained some sort of treasure and gave it to the young master to consume? What kind of extraordinary heavenly treasure could allow a martial artist at the battle soldier rank to directly leap across a major realm and enter the battle warrior rank? Although this kind of fast advancement could truly make a cultivator stronger in a short period of time, it also meant that their foundation would become extremely brittle and their future on the martial path would be considered severed. Could it be that the Guardian had no idea that this was the case? That shouldn't be the case. With the other party's knowledge as a Grand Master, how could he not know how serious the side effects were for this method? Could it be that there really was a treasure that could rapidly increase one's cultivation without destroying one's foundation? Zhang Tuling shook his head, not quite sure what to make of this. However, one thing was clear to him. Since this person had made a breakthrough in his dojo, he had to ensure their safety. If anything were to happen, he would not be able to explain himself to the Guardian. Chang, Fan Lauer, take care of him downstairs. Be careful, don't let anything happen to you. Zhang Tuling instructed them, Yes, the two figures agreed and disappeared from the room. The cultivation technique continued to circulate. Meanwhile, Fang Mingzi's aura fluctuated more and more violently, as if he could make a breakthrough at any moment. The vortex of spirit qi around him also became even more violent and terrifying. It wasn't that Fang Mingzi's talent was so powerful that the Dragon Elephant Wisdom technique, which was only at level 1, had such great power. It was just that he was already at the peak of rank 3 and was also on the verge of breaking through. Furthermore, he just happened to be close to breaking through to the level 1 of the Dragon Elephant Wisdom technique. The three coincidences had lined up. If Fang Ming's really had such talent, he would have long surpassed the level of Grandmaster. Why would he waste his time at rank 3? Meanwhile, through his spiritual power observation, Wang Yi discovered that there was nothing unusual about Fang Ming's. The spirit qi circulating in his meridians was very stable. Thus, Wang Yi heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like the people of this world could also cultivate Wang Yi's cultivation techniques. Unfortunately, these techniques seemed to demand more from the native martial artists here. Wang Yi could sense that although Fang Ming's could cultivate the Dragon Elephant Wisdom technique, it was still very difficult for him. This was after undergoing the baptism of the Beast Court, consolidating his foundation, and eliminating the hidden dangers in his body. If it was an ordinary person, they would probably have to enter the Battle Warrior rank before attempting to cultivate this technique. Meanwhile, Fang Ming sat cross-legged and circulated his cultivation technique. The more he cultivated, the more scared he felt. The speed at which spirit qi was being absorbed was simply too fast. Furthermore, this was only the elementary level, yet it was already much stronger than his own cultivation technique. If one had to compare the two techniques, it would be the difference between a stream and a river. Boundless spirit qi surged into his body, strengthening his body and meridians. As the spirit qi charged into his body, the wisps of spirit qi were not absorbed by his body. Instead, they were stored in the meridians. As the cultivation technique continued to circulate, more and more spirit qi gathered in his meridians. Boom! As if it had reached a certain limit, the residual spirit qi instantly gathered and underwent a qualitative change, turning into a gurgling stream that flowed through his meridians. This was true qi. Fang Mingzi's meridians had actually condensed true qi. Although it was very weak, with the circulation of the cultivation technique, the spirit qi was constantly tempered and the wave of true qi was also constantly strengthening. At this moment, Fang Ming's had officially stepped into rank 4 and achieved the Battle Warrior rank. Meanwhile, Wang Yi had recently come into contact with rank 9 Great Beast Kings, Conate Realm Experts, and rank 7 Beast Kings. Thus, he did not take the Battle Warrior rank seriously. However, it was because Wang Yi was strong enough that he had the qualifications to interact with such experts. In the vast and endless Langya region, there were hundreds of giant cities, and there were tens of billions of humans. More than 80% of them had yet to begin on their martial arts journey or had just started. Most of the remaining people were at the Battle Soldier rank. Martial artists who were at the Battle Warrior rank were as rare as phoenix feathers or unicorn horns, while there was only one Grandmaster for every 1 million people. For example, in Kang City, there were tens of thousands of living beings. However, there was only one person at the Grandmaster rank, the Guardian Fang Yuan. Even though there were more people at the Battle Warrior rank, there were probably less than 100 of them. Among them, there were more rank 4 and rank 5 experts. Thus, it could be said that in terms of cultivation level, Fang Ming's could be ranked in the top 100 in Kang City. Fang Ming's was now sitting cross-legged. Although he had broken through, he still felt a little dazed and unreal, as if he was in a dream. It was too easy. Breaking through to this tier had been as easy as eating and drinking. It was actually even easier when he had achieved rank -1. Fang Mingzi's heart, which had just calmed down, became restless again. He was still in the elementary stages of this cultivation technique, yet its absorption rate was already so abnormal. It was equivalent to the cultivation speed of a cultivation technique at the Battle Warrior rank. Based on his rough estimation, if he could reach level 3 of this technique, he would be able to absorb spirit qi faster than a Grandmaster. This time, he was really lucky. Fang Ming's forced himself to calm down. Then, he continued to circulate his energy and stabilize his realm while he had just broken through. If his cultivation level dropped at this stage, that would be really embarrassing. After a long time, Fang Ming's took a deep breath and stood up, his face filled with excitement. After a few steps, he came in front of Wang Yi and knelt down. With his head on the ground, he spoke solemnly. Thank you, Grandmaster Wang, for imparting this supreme technique. I am unable to repay you. I am willing to acknowledge Grandmaster Wang as my master and serve Grandmaster Wang for life. I hope that Grandmaster Wang will not abandon me and accept me. After saying this, his head continued to knock on the ground. The sincerity in his attitude was quite touching. Wang Yi shook his head helplessly. This guy really had the life of a protagonist. When watching television dramas in his previous life, Wang Yi watched as Huang Rong had helped Guo Jing learn the 18 subduing dragon palms from Hong Qigong 1. After Fang Ming's expressed his intention to serve him, Wang Yi suddenly thought of this. Why not become a senior expert like Hong Qigong and teach some martial arts to this silly boy, who was like Guo Jing, to thank him for his hospitality? Then, everything that would happen after that, including the help of the guardian's residence towards the Su family, would fit Wang Yi's intentions. Today, he had not only imparted martial arts to Fang Ming's, but also used the Beast Court to help Fang Ming's increase his strength and solidify his foundation. Wang Yi did not care much about leaking this martial arts technique. After all, this was simply a martial arts technique he had obtained in the early days of signing into the system. Even though it was powerful, it was only powerful in the early levels. It was like playing a game. This was just a piece of beginner's equipment. Who would care so much about it? By the time others finished studying it, he might not even know how many divine techniques he would possess by then. He waved his hand and a wave of strong true qi surged out. It lifted Fang Ming's, who was kneeling on the ground. Then, Wang Yi said calmly, "From now on, you can just call me sir. I'll remember this matter for now. However, I don't have any intention of accepting a disciple at the moment. I taught you 3 levels of the cultivation technique as a test for you. If you can achieve level 3 within a year, I don't mind accepting you as my disciple. The technique I taught you is called the Dragon Elephant Wisdom Technique. It has a total of 13 levels. Once you achieve level 9, you will be able to pluck the Conate Phala and enter the Conate Realm. If you can master all 13 levels, you will be able to challenge Conate Realm experts even if you have not reached the Conate Realm." Fang Mingzi's breathing gradually became heavy. There was no mistake, he had not heard Wang Yi wrongly the previous time. Wang Yi was really talking about the Conate Realm. He instantly understood how precious this cultivation technique was. Then, he looked at Wang Yi and said solemnly, "Sir, don't worry. Even if I die, I will not reveal this technique." However, Wang Yi did not care. He shrugged his shoulders and said casually, "That's not necessary. When you return home, if your father is interested, you can pass this technique on to him and study it with him." Fang Ming's became even more excited. He didn't dare to casually pass down such a cultivation technique, not even to his father. Otherwise, he would break the rules of the martial arts world. However, with Wang Yi's permission, the situation was different. Not only could his father cultivate this technique, but they could also use it openly. It was even possible that his father could also make a breakthrough to a higher realm. Fang Ming's bowed again and said excitedly, "I'll thank you on behalf of my father. In the future, my father will definitely visit you personally. From now on, I will work even harder to cultivate. I will strive to reach the peak of level 3 as soon as possible to complete Sir's test." Wang Yi nodded his head and couldn't help but remind him, "Although you've already entered the elementary level, the greatest taboo is to cultivate this technique rashly. You must cultivate it step by step. You must not go too far and injure yourself." "Yes, sir." Dong, dong, dong. Just as Fang Ming's finished speaking, there was a series of knocks on the door. Wang Yi had a strange look on his face. Why was she here? At this moment, a middle-aged woman was standing outside the door. She held a huge bag in her hand and was pacing back and forth anxiously. Although she was dressed very ordinarily, it could not conceal her noble temperament. Wang Yi had a strange expression on his face. He signaled with his eyes, and Fang Ming's understood what he meant. Fang Ming's went straight to the door and opened it. Then, he was slightly stunned as he recognized the person in front of him. It was Li Langxin. She was the matriarch of the Su family, Su Xia's mother, and Wang Yi's former mother-in-law. Ever since they found out that Wang Yi was a grandmaster, the guardian's residents had to gather some information about him, including his surface relations with other people. In addition, the Su family was a well-known family in Kang City. It was normal for them to be recognized. However, shouldn't the Su family have many things to do now? Why did she have time to come here? Fang Ming's was a little confused, but it didn't affect his next move. He chuckled. Isn't this Auntie Sue from the Sue family? Why are you here today? Li Langson was taken aback as well. She did not expect Fang Mings to be the one to open the door. She quickly greeted, "Greetings, young Master Fang." Although Fang Mings was not an official, he was still the only son of the Guardian. Furthermore, the Guardian had just helped the Sue family. Thus, logically speaking, this greeting was necessary. Li Langson felt no pressure in her heart in doing so. However, Fang Mings jumped in fright and quickly dodged, not daring to accept such a greeting. What a joke. Other people might not know about the incident between the Sue family and Wang Yi, but he was very clear about it. Even though the Sue family had kicked Wang Yi out of the family, they only did so because they did not know Wang Yi's actual strength and wanted to protect him. On the other hand, Wang Yi knew the secret behind what had happened. When the Sue family's troubles were resolved and Wang Yi returned to the Sue family, that was when the Sue family would truly soar. By then, the person before him would be the mother-in-law of a Grandmaster realm expert, and her status would be on par with his own. Furthermore, could she really treat Wang Yi as an ordinary Grandmaster? Fang Mings did not dare to be so naive. If he really thought that way, then he would be a fool. Furthermore, if he could cultivate to the peak of rank 3 in a year's time and take Wang Yi as his master, then this person would be his master's mother-in-law. In that case, her seniority would be much higher. With these considerations in mind, Fang Mings felt that if he dared to accept this greeting, Wang Yi would teach him a lesson. Of course, Li Langson did not know what Fang Mings was thinking. After greeting him, she said anxiously, "I had no other choice. Please forgive me for disturbing young Master Fang's cultivation. Is Wang Yi here?" Only then did Fang Mings come back to his senses. He laughed dryly to cover up his embarrassment as if he had just woken up from a dream. Then, he reached out and led Li Langson into the room. Then, he smiled and spoke. "There's nothing to disturb. Auntie is too polite. Please come in. Please come in. Sir Wang is inside." Hearing this, Li Langson couldn't care less and hurried into the room. She must have been too anxious and subconsciously neglected the fact that Fang Mingzi's attitude towards her was a little too polite, and his greeting towards Wang Yi was a little strange. This did not match his status as the young master of the Guardian's family. When Li Langson entered the private suite and saw Wang Yi standing there, she smiled. Then, she took a few steps forward and arrived in front of Wang Yi. Just as she was about to say something, she glanced at Fang Mings, who was still beside her, with an unnatural expression. She opened her mouth, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Fang Mings had a keen eye. Seeing Li Langson's hesitant look, he knew what was going on. He smiled and said, "Auntie, you guys chat first. I'm going to see owner Zhang." This is from SoundStories Audiobook YouTube channel. Then, he turned around and walked out of the suite. What Fang Mings said was true. He needed to see the owner of the Tuling Dojo, Zhang Tuling. After all, he was a student here, and Zhang Tuling would occasionally give a few pointers during his training. Although he had relied on Wang Yi's help to break through here today, he should still meet the owner of this place. As Fang Mings left, Li Langson heaved a sigh of relief. Although her eyes were filled with surprise, there was also indescribable anxiety within. Bang! Li Langson let go of the bag in her hand. The sound of a heavy object hitting the ground could be heard. All of a sudden, she grabbed Wang Yi's sleeve with an anxious look on her face. Before Wang Yi could say anything, she quickly said, "Time is limited, I'll cut it short." Previously, the Su family had offended a Grandmaster and was in danger of being destroyed at any time. In order to protect you, Xia had no choice but to act ruthlessly and chase you out of the Su family. But I didn't expect that despite that, he still wasn't willing to let you off. The car accident you were in was his doing. Wang Yi's eyes were burning with anger. He naturally knew the inside story, but when Li Langson said what had been buried in her heart, it still made him furious. Was that person a Grandmaster? So what, if that bastard Zhao Tianlin dared to come, Wang Yi would absolutely make him beg for death. Seeing how anxious Li Langson was, Wang Yi started to blame himself. Why didn't he tell them about his current strength earlier? That way, he wouldn't have made the Su family members worry all day long. There's no need. Wang Yi was about to say that there was no need to worry, but Li Langson interrupted him. There's no time. Yi, listen to me first. That Grandmaster was prepared to strike down the Su family's business and force us into a dead end before killing us all. It was supposed to be a situation of certain death, but I didn't expect that there would suddenly be a turn of events a few days ago. The Guardian's residence suddenly helped the Su family. Even though the threat from the Grand Master has not been resolved, there was indeed a turning point. There's 5 million yuan in cash in this bag. To prepare for the worst, hire a team of martial artists to escort you out of Kang City and find a place to hide. After this round is over, we will think of a way to contact you. After saying that, she picked up the bag on the floor and handed it over. Wang Yi took the bag. However, before he could say anything, Li Lengxin was about to stand up and leave. As she walked out, she instructed, "I can't stay here for long. Someone is following me. When I leave later, you should leave Kang City immediately too." After she finished speaking, she had already left the private suite. She came and went in a hurry, looking very anxious. Wang Yi wanted to stop her and tell her about his current situation, but he suddenly changed his mind as he watched her leave. If he told the other party that he was now a top-grade grandmaster, the other party might not believe him. It would be troublesome to explain. After all, he was just an ordinary person a few days ago. The gap between the past and current Wang Yi was too huge. She probably could not accept it at the moment. Looking at the back view of Li Lengxin as she left, a slight smile appeared on Wang Yi's face. He had a plan in his mind. Fang Yuan was also a grandmaster. When Fang Ming's returned later, he could ask him to use his father's name to comfort the Su family. After Li Lengxin left the suite, the temperature in the room seemed to have dropped by tens of degrees. Wisps of white air appeared out of thin air, making one's back shiver. A stalker. A cold murmur ran through the empty room. There was no emotion in it, only endless indifference to life, like a god looking down on the mortal world. The floor was completely made of a material called the green steel stone. It could withstand the full training of a rank 3 martial artist. As the sound rang out, cracks appeared on the floor. In the blink of an eye, the entire room was filled with cracks, like a giant spider web. Before long, a cruel smile appeared on Wang Yi's face as he disappeared from the suite. He wanted to see how arrogant that stalker was. This guy was really asking for death. Just as Wang Yi's figure disappeared from the suite, the silver-winged cloud leopard, who was hiding in a corner and pretending to be dead, suddenly stood up. It couldn't help but shiver and feel a chill in its heart. Who was so unlucky to have provoked this great and vicious human being? He was much angrier than when he had beaten it up. This guy was definitely dead. The silver-winged cloud leopard couldn't help but gloat. It had just been taught a lesson, and it was very willing to see others suffer the same fate as it. It flicked its tail and swayed its silver wings as it leisurely walked towards the corner of the suite. Meanwhile, Wang Yi followed Li Lengxin out of the dojo at a decent pace. When he walked through the door of the dojo, Wang Yi felt his blood rushing to his head. He was infuriated again. Today was probably the day that he got the angriest since he came to this world. A white Nissan Tiana was parked at the entrance of the dojo. After all, Wang Yi had lived in the Su family for a period of time, so he recognized it immediately. It was Li Lengxin's car. At this moment, there were 2 strong men standing beside the sports car. They were dressed in black suits, but the suits could not hide their steel-like muscles. The 2 of them stood there with their hands behind their backs like statues. They didn't move an inch, but their rough faces seemed a little scary. This is from the SoundStories Audiobook YouTube channel. Before this, Wang Yi was still wondering how she had discovered the stalker. After all, Li Lengxin was just an ordinary person who had yet to enter the world of martial arts. Meanwhile, the stalker should be a martial artist. At this moment, he finally understood. If it were not for the provocative smiles that the 2 men in black suits flashed when they saw Li Lengxin, Wang Yi would have thought that they were her bodyguards. No wonder Li Lengxin was able to discover them. They were so blatant in their actions. Could this even be considered as spying? Even if this was called a house arrest, it was still considered polite. When Li Lengxin saw the 2 of them, her expression immediately turned cold. She snorted heavily as her heart burned with rage, like a volcano that was about to erupt. In the next moment, the coldness on Li Lengxin's face turned into helplessness. A deep sense of helplessness welled up in her heart. Was there really hope for the Su family? It was obvious that Grandmaster Zhao did not want to let the Su family off. In order to prevent them from escaping, he did not hesitate to put them under house arrest, forcing them to stay in Kang City. Due to the sudden interference of the Guardian's residence, the situation had taken a turn for the better. However, there was still no way to resolve the problem. They needed martial strength. What the Sioux family lacked was martial strength that could stabilize the situation. In the face of an absolute disparity in martial strength, any borrowed power or external force would be useless. This was the principle of one man defeating 10 people. For example, right now, no matter how good the Sioux family's development was or how much of an advantage the Sioux family had, as soon as Grandmaster Zhao arrived at Kang City, everything would instantly be for naught. Would the Guardian's residents stand up for them? In any case, Li Lengxin did not hold any hope. After all, she knew her limits. To ordinary people, the Sioux family was indeed a huge power. Many people wanted to cling to them, but they were not qualified. However, the Sioux family was nothing compared to the real wealthy families. Would the Guardian fight a Grandmaster realm expert head-on for them? How was that possible? After all, that was a Grandmaster. What right did the Sioux family have? Or rather, what value did the Sioux family have to make the Guardian risk his life to provoke an expert of the same level for them? It was simply impossible. Right now, Li Lengxin's thoughts were actually very simple. She wanted to take this opportunity to save as many people as she could. If she could use this opportunity to let Wang Yi live, it would be good too. Ignoring the two burly men in black suits, Li Lengxin got into her car. As the engine roared, the sports car shot forward like an arrow leaving a bow. When they saw Li Lengxin leave, the two men quickly got into the car beside her and prepared to follow her. Their mission was to keep an eye on Li Lengxin and prevent the Sioux family from leaving Kang City. If the other party really escaped, the consequences would not be something they could bear. Buzz, buzz. As the man in the driver's seat turned the key, the car started up. Then, he stepped hard on the accelerator and the car instantly sped away. However, the next moment, an ear-piercing screech could be heard as the tires left two black marks on the ground. The car that had just started stopped. As the two men watched Li Lengxin's car drive away, Wang Yi simply appeared in front of their car and stood there with a smile. They shifted from extreme movement to extreme stillness. Thus, the strong inertia caused the two people in the car to involuntarily crash into the dashboard. However, they were both martial artists and weren't injured. This is from the SoundStories audiobook YouTube channel. Fuck, have you lived long enough? Are you in a hurry to reincarnate? If you want to die somewhere else, don't look for trouble with me. The burly man sitting in the front passenger seat had an angry expression on his already rough face. His tightly furrowed brows made his expression even more sinister. He rolled down the car window, stretched out half of his body, and started cursing at Wang Yi. Of course, he only dared to curse. However, this was not because they knew Wang Yi's strength. If they knew Wang Yi's strength, even if they had 10 times the courage, they would not dare to say what they had just said. No matter who was here today, they didn't dare to make a move. At best, they could only curse a bit to satisfy their cravings. They could be overbearing towards a big family like the Sioux family and could even disregard the life and death of the Sioux family. However, that was because of the person backing them. That person had a personal grudge with the Sioux family, so the Guardian of Kang City turned a blind eye to their actions against the Sioux family. However, if they dared to harm the commoners of Kang City during this process, then the meaning of that person's actions would be different. That would be a provocation to the Guardian's residents. If the Guardian's residents decided to punish them or even kill them, the person backing them would have nothing to say. After cursing a few times, although the two of them were still very angry, they prepared to drive away. They could tell which matter was more important. Wait till next part.